Welcome to everyone that isn't in session one. This is the session for accessibility and UX. So basically it's all about making our applications more accessible to people and making it a little bit easier for people to use them if they're, I don't know, visually impaired or if they just want better user feedback. So all we're going to do is run npm install first. And then we're going to do npm run dev and open up the app. Welcome to Getflix. This is basically Grant's version of Netflix. I don't owe them any money. Did it all myself. So this is just basic website that we've got a user form. So we've got a full name, email address, password, confirm password, then agree to terms and conditions. Problem is though, when we click sign up, it tries and submits the form because we have zero error validation or error handling or anything like this. So basically, our first job is going to be adding in some error handling. And we can do that using, if we look at the registration form, it's already using, so I've already set this kind of up, it's using the React hook form. This is a really common library that when you're using forms has built-in stuff like form validation, error handling, submissions, all that kind of stuff. So why reinvent the wheel? Why try and make it harder for yourself? Just use this instead. So basically, we can use one that I prepared earlier. And we're just going to go in there and we're going to add in some error handling. If I copy this. So now when we refresh the page, click submit, we've now got these error messages. So you can see we've got full name is required, we've got email is required, please enter your password, confirm password, and then you've basically said like you must agree to the terms and conditions. Having this level of feedback, down there. So we have this level of feedback allows us to tell the user that there's something wrong. Now without this, obviously the user doesn't know what they've done wrong, they doesn't know that it's required or anything like that, so it's not of any use. And it's really simple to set up. We literally just give it a object expanding the register function that's provided to us by use form, and we can basically say we want to register a property called password, and then we want to say it's required, and if it's not required, that's the error message that we want to have shown. We then say if you wanted to go to the confirm password, we can add a validation method, so we can validate that I want you to watch the password field, and I want to check whether the passwords are the same. So if the value that's inside confirm password does not match what's in password, and we can use this watch function to see as we're typing the password, if we've got something in here and we start typing in here, we can automatically see that the passwords don't match as soon as I start typing. It's given that feedback to say, rather than you typing out the full password and then waiting. Now, obviously, I wouldn't recommend it just because obviously, I mean, it's all right for confirm password, but I wouldn't use it for maybe like really secure stuff where if someone was to type in, I mean, what I'm trying to say is, there is a password, but because you're typing in the password for the first time, it's okay because you can type in the password for the first time, it's only your password. So you can do stuff like this where as you're typing, you can compare whether it's the same. Just offers that little bit of better usability rather than getting to the end and then you go and submit, oh, passwords don't match. Whereas obviously if you're doing it you wouldn't use it somewhere where you were typing in a password that you've already used, because then people could just use this to try and work out what it was originally, if you know what I mean. Can't think of what I'm trying to say, but you get the message. So that's simple error handling. Now, the problem with this is like, this is great for people who can see, right? Like, I can see the messages there. If you're blind though, you don't hear any of this. So what we can do is we can, if you submit this, you don't really know that there's a problem until you hover over the item. So I'll show you what I mean, and we'll just have a look, see what people would actually hear if you were on a, is it that, and that? So I'll try and show you
your keyboard. If you already know how to use VoiceOver, press the V key now.
So you can see here we're on
VoiceOver on Chrome.
We're on the page.
Google Chrome full name, window, required, edit text, has keyboard focus. You are currently on a text field. Inside web content. To enter text in this field, type. To exit this web area, press Control, Option, Shift, up arrow.
So you can see that we've got it. It's telling us it's required. It's telling us that we're in the focus, and then obviously as we tab through,
required, edit text, email address, edit text, email, blank.
So it's telling us that we're inside that thing. Now the problem is,
to exit this web area, press Control, Option, Shift,
all right.
arrow. VoiceOver off.
So that's annoyingly gone away. You can see that it's telling us that there's a full name, but it's not really very useful because we don't know that there's any errors on the page. So what we can do is we can use a function called aria-live, which is an attribute you can put on any sort of div, and it'll live wait for an update on that. So what we can do is, if at the top, so for example, if we have const, I'll just copy and paste this from here because it'll be 10 times easier. If we do something like this, and then we stick this down, I don't know, just above the form, and why is that complaining? Set status message, can't return. Let's make that a P tag instead, just to make that easier. Equals assertive. So then basically what that's going to do is we can set it up so that on submit we set message status to, I don't know, complete or something, or there are errors. And then what we can do is we can do a const error handle. We'll move that into there, just so the point is proven a little bit more. And then we can call that from within our use form. So in here, we give it a non-success, and then we can give it a non-handle failure, which means that when we go back to our app, if there's an error, it's going to prop up and say there's an error. Now what happens is, because we've used the aria-live, if we turn on our annoying friend again,
welcome to VoiceOver,
and then we submit, you can see it's talking now. If we click sign up now and there's an error, because we've told it to be assertive on the aria-live, it'll kick in.
You are currently on a text field. Inside web content. To enter text in this field.
It's not being very helpful, but basically the aria-live being assertive will try and interject, but because there's so much going on in the screen reader, it's tripping itself up. But the idea is that this aria-live status message would be read out, but then because there's so much going on, it's saying it really quick and then trying to do something else at the same time, if you know what I mean. But the idea is that this aria-live, you can subscribe. It's basically saying like, listen for this to change, and when it does, tell me about it. So it's just that more visual thing, like there is an error. Now, the issue is that people who are not blind, they don't really care. They can see that there's errors. So what you can do is like Tailwind has a really nice, so for those who aren't familiar what Tailwind is, Tailwind's like basically a CSS library that just has built-in classes that you can use, and it'll just apply styling. So if you hover over like text white, by adding text white class name, it'll automatically apply a color of white to your text. Center text will align your text. Text XL will give it a font size. It's just it's a lot nicer, faster way of just spinning up things without having to handle your own CSS. So that's why I used it. But they have a really nice class name called SR only. And basically what that means is screen reader only. So it'll only be visible to screen readers rather than everyone. So like now, if we click sign up, it won't show for us, but if you have a screen reader on, it'll read out the content on the screen if you tab to it and all that kind of stuff. So it's just really, really helpful, really. It makes the site a lot more accessible. The same way in that at the moment we've got full name is required and we've got email is required, we've got please enter your password. These are all great, but again, these aren't being read out by our screen reader. So what we can do is you can add an aria required attribute to the inputs. So you can basically have in that aria required, when it goes onto full name, the screen reader will read out that it's a required field. So if we refresh the page and then get our annoying friend back again.
Welcome to Voice.
And we click there.
VoiceOver on Chrome. Jetflix. Google Chrome full name. Window. Required menu pop-up. Edit text with autofill menu. Has keyboard focus.
So you can
You
tell
are currently on a text field.
it's
Inside
already
web content.
given us
To enter text
all that
in this
information. So
field,
it's told us you're in a window, you've got
autofill
focus
menu.
on it.
Press the up or down arrow key. Then press the return key to enter it into VoiceOver on.
It's telling us it's required, it's telling us that it's the full name, it's giving it, like, you know what I mean? It's reading out the placeholders. But we shouldn't really rely just on placeholders because some screen readers don't pick them up. It also, as soon as you start typing in this box, it's gone. All context of what's inside the input box is gone out the window. You don't know that, oh, by the way, like, I'm typing this, what was that? And then if you tab away, if you go back to the previous tab, that's going to read out it's not going to tell you, oh, this is the full name box that you're input to. So you shouldn't expect your user to have a mental map of where they've tabbed through, because anyone that's interacted with someone who's sort of visually impaired, they can do this really quick. So like that speed that they were reading at the VoiceOver, that's probably about like a level 1 for most people. If you're visually impaired, you probably crank that up to like 6 or 7. You can just listen for keywords like required input, you know what I mean? That's all you kind of need to know. So getting around this, what we do is we can add labels. So we can basically just add a label in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do one that I prepared earlier. And now we have labels. So this label here is now saying you've got full name, but you've got a placeholder as well. You've got email, email address, but it just means that these will get read out by the screen reader. And how that works is using a really important attribute called the HTML4. And what you can see is in the label, you've got this HTML4. And all this does is it basically links. It can only be used on labels. That's worth pointing out. You wouldn't use it. You can't use a HTML4 attribute on like a paragraph tag or something like that. It's for labels only, to be able to link your label to another element on the page. So you can see here we've got HTML4, and this links to confirm password. Now, all that means is that when the screen reader comes along, it's going to see the label and it's going to say, okay, when I read out the information around the confirm password, prefix it with this label first. So it's basically going to say there is password, it's going to say something like password, password input required, text edit field, all this kind of stuff. It also means for people who aren't visually impaired, when you click on the label, it'll automatically focus your input, which is really handy. So rather than having to click in the thing, you can literally just go, oh, I want to edit the email. You just click the label again, and it'll automatically focus your cursor. Which kind of leads me on to my next point, which is around this here. So you've got stuff, by default, if we take this line off, so like on the, so this is on the confirm password, you can see here it's like blue, and this is the default browser focus styling. So like this is adding the default styling from the browser. It's going to say just put a blue or a white ring around it kind of thing. It's going to try and inherit that color. The problem is though, people who are like obviously colorblind or people who find contrasting colors difficult, the inherent of the styling of the browser might not be good for them, might not be useful. So what you can do is you can just add, it's advised to add your own styling. So you can see here you can turn off focus outline. So we're turning off the inherited focus outline, and we're basically adding our own. So we're saying here, I want you to add a ring with a shadow of this color. We've gone for a red just to keep it within styling of the app. But you could change this to whatever you wanted. Like if you wanted to have it, say you had a light mode and a dark mode on the app, you could literally just turn that as like, all right, well, I want to turn that to yellow or whatever you want. You could have ring yellow. And then obviously when you click on the bottom one. So you can literally change that to be a yellow or whatever, and then obviously you can change the font weight. So you can say, oh, actually I want it to be like really thick, or I want it to be really thin, or you know what I mean? Like you can have a bit of a play around with it. But it just means that if people have, like the perfect example would be from a light mode to a dark mode, just being able to flick between the two. You can say like, oh, if it's in light mode, I want it to be in red and I want it to be bold, where if it's in dark mode, I want it to be yellow. And it just means that you're not relying on the browser to make that clear to people. You can also then do accessibility tests on it around, does this, is for example in the NHS, they have like restrictions and say like you need at least compliance to, I don't know, is it 40:1 ratio or something, you know what I mean? So you can test colors. It just means you have that power and that ability to be able to override them and put a bit of custom styling in there. Is everyone following along so far? Yeah? So the next thing that you can also do for accessibility and just offering that better user experience is using field sets. So a field set is basically a way of grouping your HTML input. You're probably familiar with the field set. You might not be so familiar with the legend tag. So the field set, what we can do is if we just wrap our entire form, because we've only got one form, we can basically just wrap everything in a field set. And then right at the bottom, we just say, okay, everything within this form is a field set of its own. This is really handy if you had, say, a bigger form and you had, say, on the left-hand side, you had user details, and on the right-hand side, you had, I don't know, address details or something. Because then what you could do is you could have a field set for your user details and say, all right, type in your username, your full name, password, all that kind of stuff. And on the right, you could have another, within the same form, you could have a separate field set with address details. Now you might be thinking, well, why is that important? Well, for accessibility, it really is, because what we can have is it'll read out the field set, and then it could read out the legend. So what we can do is we can use this legend syntax, and we can stick this right underneath our field set. And what this does is, again, we're using that SR only class to say this is only for screen readers, but basically it's going to read that out as context for that field set. So there's a link there between the field set and the legend, and it's basically saying everything in this legend, here's some context about what it is. So like here, you could change this from sign up for Netflix account. You could change that to, I don't know, enter, it could be, I don't know, account details. And then if you had another one on the other page, you could have one called address details or whatever. And it just gives the user a little bit of a context as to where they are on the page, what are they doing on the page. Because it'll read out, if you're going through the page, I mean, I can show you if you want to bring the annoying person back again.
Welcome to VoiceOver. VoiceOver on Chrome, Jetflix, Google Chrome, Window, Vite plus React plus TS, tab, group, toolbar item palette, book, Jetflix, web content. You are currently on a web content.
Control.
Inside a group. To
Options.
enter the web area, press Control out of Jetflix. Invite, interact, stop interacting with the title of button. Chrome.
I am. I'm trying to get
you are
to.
Current Jetflix. Full name.
Right, we're in there now.
Menu pop-up. Edit text with autofill menu. Account details.
So you can see there, you've got the account details section in it. So it'll tell you that if we tab through, you've got email address, edit text.
You are currently on a text field. To enter text in this field, type.
So when we go, because we're already in it, it won't read it out again. But obviously, as soon as we went into that section, it knew we were inside that field set, if you know what I mean. If that makes sense.
I agree. Sign up button. You are currently on a button. Full name. Required menu pop-up. Edit text with autofill menu.
But yeah,
VoiceOver off.
You get the point. It just allows you to, they know what part of the page they're on, if you know what I mean. But you can use it for all sorts. You can use it for, you could put it in navigation bar to say like you're now in the navigation bar, or like just to give them a bit of context, because to us, we see this big sign up, right? We see this big page saying sign up, like what page am I on at the moment? That kind of thing, you know what I mean? You can put whatever you want in there. So it's just, yeah, it's just really useful to have, basically. Does that make sense? Next one though, so do you know what I was saying about like a label can have a HTML4, but obviously other inputs can't. So this is where the described by comes into play. So basically we can look at, if we just replace the email area, where we are, email. So what we've done here is we've just slightly updated the email input. What we've done is we've added these two attributes. Now this is an aria-invalid and an aria-describedby. So the aria-invalid basically says if there's errors in the email, so if any of the form object errors is email, it basically means that the email field is invalid. So we can just set that to true or false. And then what that does is on the front end, when the screen reader gets onto the tab, if you tab through and you get to the email input, it's going to read out that this input is invalid. And it's going to say, this is invalid. Well, that's good, but why? And that's where the described by comes into play. So the described by basically links another element in your DOM. So it's basically saying here, I want to describe, if there's an email error, then this input is described by the ID of email error. That makes sense? Which is underneath here. And that's your error message. So then what the screen reader will do is it'll go, you'll tab into the email box, for example, and it'll say like email focused, invalid, because email is required. Does that make sense? So you can now, we can get the annoying person back again if you want.
Welcome to VoiceOver.
So then,
VoiceOver on Chrome. VoiceOver off.
I just wanted you to be quiet,
Welcome to VoiceOver.
not go away.
Full name. Required menu pop-up. Edit text with autofill menu.
So then if we tab into, we'll wait till this to finish, and then we'll tab into the next one.
Press the up or down arrow key, then press the return key. Email.
Email is
required. Invalid data. Edit text email.
So you can see what I mean. It's telling us that it's saying this is the field, the email is required, therefore it's invalid data, and you're currently focused or you're editing it, if you know what I mean. So that's the kind of beauty of just adding these slightly different sort of attributes can really help a lot of the screen reading. I mean, for us, we're not going to see it. It's not going to affect like able-bodied people, but for people who can't view the screen, that additional information just by adding a simple tag, it's really going to help. So that's the other thing we can do. I'd highly avoid using tooltips, and the reason is because screen readers again can't read them. So like you know, like you hover over stuff and it comes up like a little tooltip. You might have seen them back in like the early 2000s. They were all the rage where people had little eye icons and you click them and it has like a mode or a pop-up, or you on hover. Well, on hover doesn't work with screen readers, so it's not usable. So what I'd advise to do is again use that described by and just literally just put in a p tag and just say I don't know, password must must be 8 characters long, and then again just add the aria described by. So what you can do is you can add multiple described by, so you can do, I don't know, password hint, and we put a ID on here. What we can do is just for ease of showing you, we'll just put in password hint and email error. Can't remember if it's a comma you need to do or I honestly can't remember the syntax. I think it's just a space. It's not what I want to do. Batman's coming to save us. It's all good. Yeah. So basically, you just do something like this, where you're saying, "I want you to link both the password, the error's email, and the password hint, and it'll read one after the other, whatever order you put them in on the describe by. So it'll say there's an email error because email is required, and then it'll read out password must be 8 characters long. But on the front end to the visually able, once I don't break this, don't know what I've broken, but just complaining about that, I think. Don't know why that's complaining. Let's just put that back to where it was. I don't know why it feels that that code now is. Yeah, it could be. I have no idea what that's complaining for. Yeah, not sure about that one, but basically you get the gist. It's allowing us to, on the front end you'll see password must be right, so we just put that in a nicer color. So we get a visual aid, and then obviously once we'd hooked up that describe by, we can say, okay, not only do I want it to read out that there's an error, I also want it to read out that, just to give them a hint that it needs to be 8 characters long, they might have just typed in 7 or something like that, you know what I mean? But it just gives that visual feedback, again, of being able to see what's going on the page. The next point, again, just clarity is more than anything, making that user experience easier. So rather than doing something like this, where you'd basically say, I don't know, submit. A lot of people might do something like this, which is saying, oh, it's submit. Well, what am I submitting? Especially for people who are visually impaired or have accessibility needs, they're not going to know what they're submitting, because if they're tabbing through they can't see anything, they're just tabbing through elements, they don't really know what they're submitting. So by just simply renaming that from submit to, I don't know, sign up, it just means that they know that when they click this button or they make an action on this button, what they're doing is they're signing up. And then obviously if they click it prematurely, it's going to tell them, whoa, you've forgotten all this information. So if they're just scanning through the inputs and they're like, oh, actually I've missed all this stuff, like they know to go back and refill it. I imagine people who use a screen reader on a daily basis are going to be much better at navigating than me, so apologies for that. But that's pretty much a quick overhaul of things to think about when you're working with user forms or any sort of web page, really. Just try and think about, okay, yes, it's a lot more HTML to write, but it all depends on the needs of your customer. You might be working on a client project where they say, we need to have all of these accessibility needs, or it might just say, we just need at least headings being read out, error messages being read out, or just a basic like tree structure or something. It all depends on what your client or has basically asked you to do. Obviously you can go to them and say like, look, it's worth adding this in, but obviously that then comes with added testing and added, you know what I mean, that comes with like added problems. But if you come into my next session, you'll learn about how we can automate that. So any questions or anything people want to go over, or anything people want to know how we'd solve, or?
I suppose the biggest focus here was around screen readers, but how everyone would try to implement something more into like colorblind people.
Yeah.
What kind of measures or what kind of tools should we use, if there was any?
Yeah, so you can do accessibility checker W3AG, I think it's called. So going into here, there's quite a lot of tools that you can have. You can go away. But there's a lot of checklists you can do for compliance with, there's a lot of tools on the website. There's one called Google Lighthouse. It's a bit nifty. I think it's called Lighthouse. And it's basically a Chrome extension that you can download. Don't know why it's in French. Seem to have found the French version of the website. But basically this is an open source tool that you can just plug into as an extension onto your Chrome. And then you basically, you can go in and it'll give you it'll run a check on your website, and it'll give you, you can check whether you want to check for performance, accessibility, best practice, all that kind of stuff. And once it runs, it'll basically, yeah, it gives you a report at the end. So if we want to, we can add it in if we've got time. How do we add it in? Extensions. I really hope this is going to be a quick thing. So if we go, I don't know, let's go to ours. We'll find out how crap my website is. So if we go to Lighthouse and then generate desktop.
Use dev tools to audit pages on local hosting.
Inspect. Lighthouse. Let's just do accessibility. Analyze, we're on desktop. Analyze page. And that's basically going to go off, quickly analyze bits and pieces. 95, I'll take that. So there you can see we've got a 95% score for accessibility. And that's just because we've got various tabs. So you can see here you've got past audits. So it's checking whether you've got attributes match their roles. So we've got aria-describedbys, we've got added values, attributes are valid and not misspelled, buttons have accessible name. So like that goes back to what I was saying before around having the word sign up rather than submit.
If you change it to submit, would you think it change?
Yeah, I think we will. If we changed it to submit, we might get a lower score. So let's try it. Don't know if it's going to change too much, but how do we rerun the test? Don't know how to rerun it now. We'll not just like run it again. Analyze the page. There we go. Okay. We've still got 95, so I guess submit's still pretty nice, but yeah. But it's good though because it gives you a hint underneath. It says like when a button doesn't have an accessible name, screen readers announce it as button, making it unusable for users. So I think it's just because it's got a name in it. If you had a button that didn't have anything in it, might complain. But you can see here you've got like with like you said, like an emoji or a symbol or an icon. Like the icon obviously, like that's another good point actually. Like when you have icons, try and put like an aria tag in it just to give it a name or a description. Because if you have an icon, people don't know what it means. So try and use like icon with words underneath. So if you're using like a basket, have like a basket icon with like basket underneath, or have like an alt tag in there or something just to explain to a screen reader what it is basically. But yeah, it's a really nice tool. I wouldn't take it as gospel, but it's a good sanity check if you want to just check to see how, because I imagine if we basically put all of this back to how it was, if we do git reset hard and then do an npm install, npm run dev, inspect, we go to Lighthouse. If we run this now, I'd be very surprised to see what the score is. And there you go. That's how good the Lighthouse extension is. Because if you don't put anything in, it can't mark you down. So you can see here, it's marked as 100% because it's passed us on less criteria. So this is why I was saying it's not a great extension. This is why I had the caveat of use it as a sanity check if you've put accessibility features in, just to do a bit of a sanity check to say, yeah, what I've done, I'm using the right aria labels, or I haven't put enough in, or that kind of stuff. Because if you don't put anything in, it gives you 100% feedback. Because you can see before we had past audits, 17, now it's only checked 11 things. And you can see here you've got 48 not applicable things. So it's basically, it's got a check here to say, well done, aria attributes match their roles. Well, if you don't have any aria attributes, it can't check it. So well done, you get 100% out of 100%. It's like having 2 criteria on your driving test. You've passed your driving test because you had to get in the car. Whereas if you put other stuff in, it's got to check those things, you know what I mean?
It's checking what's there rather than
what isn't. Correct. Which is why it's good for a sanity check, but also not the best tool out there. If you really want to do full accessibility checks, best thing to do is go down, if you're working on an NHS project, for example, you can go to the NHS office and go into their accessibility lab and basically shove your app through a range of different things like screen readers, magnifiers, all that kind of stuff, which is another good point. You can see on this app, I've centralized the content, and that's because that follows, for example, in the NHS, they have like a 30-30-30 rule, which means that 30% to the left is no content, all your content is in the middle 30%, and then on your right is no content. And the reason why they do that is so that if you're on a smaller device or you're zoomed in, you've got like access zoom level to like 500, it means that as soon as you land on the page, you'll see something rather than having to slide left or right or scroll left or right and that kind of stuff. It's also the reason why a lot of the stuff is left aligned, because if you have a magnifier will go, a lot of people who use magnification tools will always read left to right how we would, because they're going to go left to right. So if you put your content right aligned or center aligned, when they use the magnifier and they go down this left corner looking for some content, there isn't it. So they might miss it because they'll think, oh, there's no content on the left. So there's no point me scanning to the right to see if there's any content, which is why if you go on any of the HMRC, Gov websites, DVLA, all the continue buttons are on the left, not on the right, which is backwards, because naturally we would say, I want to move on, put it on the right, click next or go back. Whereas they put all the buttons to the left because the magnifiers, people will always scroll down the left edge looking for the button on the left. There's an interesting fact. Anything else? We've got 1 minute left.
Are you glad no one else was coding along with their screen readers talking as well?
Yeah, that's one of the. It's one of the reasons why I said optional on the prerequisites. I was like, you can learn how to turn it on, but I wasn't going to have like a cacophony of like noise people going input, 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 input. Yeah, sound like Johnny 5. Need more input. So yeah, so I hope you've all benefited from that and you've gone away learning something.